2015 Annual State of Corruption Report. The cost of corruption on the economy, politics, and service delivery in Zimbabwe, 2000 to 2015. Corruption in Zimbabwe is a topical developmental, economic, and governance policy issue. It is directly related to key challenges that Zimbabwe continues to face. These challenges include unemployment, poverty, capital flight, deindustrialization, low investment rates, poor social service delivery, political anger, violence, and civic protest. This presentation introduces you to the findings of the 2015 Annual State of Corruption Report by Transparency International Zimbabwe. The report, entitled Political Economy of Corruption and the Battle for Accountability in Zimbabwe, explored the cumulative cost of corruption on three key governance sectors: economics, politics, social service delivery, from the year 2000 to 2015. The Shona adage, mbudzi inodyira payakasungirwa, meaning a goat grazes from where it is tied, has become everyday language. Corruption in Zimbabwe has reached endemic levels. Zimbabwe continues to score badly on the Corruption Perception Index, and in comparison to its neighbors, such as Botswana. In 2014, the National Corruption Barometer by TIZ and the 2015 Afrobarometer corroborated that corruption is on the increase in Zimbabwe. A majority of citizens, in the range of 68 to 74% in Zimbabwe, believe that corruption is on the increase, with bribery being the common form of corruption that citizens experience and relate to within their day-to-day lives when interacting with public institutions. Zimbabwe also performs well below the regional average on the 2015 Heritage Foundation Index of Economic Freedom, especially in terms of freedom from corruption, ranking at 21 out of 100 and is placed at the bottom of the regional rankings. The country also performs extremely poorly in all 6 governance areas assessed by the 2013 World Bank Worldwide Governance Indicators, scoring 2.87 on a 0 to 100 scale in terms of freedom from corruption, 2.37 in terms of rule of law, 2.39 in terms of regulatory quality, 12.92 in terms of government effectiveness, 9.95 in terms of voice and accountability, and finally 24.17 in terms of political stability and absence of violence. The most prevalent forms of corruption in Zimbabwe are at the grand and petty levels. Grand corruption typically takes place at the top levels of the public sphere and the senior management levels in business, where policies and rules are formulated and executive decisions are made. It also often involves large sums of money. The majority of perpetrators of grand corruption in Zimbabwe are political actors with political backing and influence. Grand corruption is best understood from the context of factional and predatory politics. Due to factional fighting in Zimbabwe's ruling party, ZANU-PF, a series of scandals have been exposed by political players to discredit one another. These scandals and allegations have only surfaced as a result of political infighting. In most of the grand corruption scandal cases, the alleged actors are rarely prosecuted. On the other hand, petty corruption refers to everyday abuse of entrusted power by low and mid-level public officials in their interactions with ordinary citizens, trying to access basic goods or services from hospitals, schools, police departments, and other agencies. Bribery is the main form through which petty corruption manifests in Zimbabwe. An analysis of bribery in Zimbabwe shows an indication of systematic institutional flaws and weaknesses. The data from the Business Transactional Corruption and the TIZ National Corruption Barometer therefore shows that a number of public institutions have been captured by the individual and personal accumulation interests of bureaucrats colluding with citizens and business. These institutions are also in a weak state because they no longer have the capacity for self-introspection, regeneration, and reform. Vertical accountability without corresponding horizontal accountability has made public service institutions and regulatory bodies more opaque. Bribery in Zimbabwe reflects that the costs of legal compliance are higher than the costs of bribing, both in terms of monetary value, time, and ease of obtaining a service. This report seeks to show that bribery, which is common in Zimbabwe, also reflects an anomaly or dysfunctionality of government in the pay structure of public servants, where the motivation of demanding bribes is often to supplement the infrequent and low salaries. While on average, most low-level civil servants earn about $500 or below, this amount is not enough to cover crucial monthly expenses, such as rental, which in Harare is on average $80 to $120 a month, family grocery, $100, transport, $100, water and electricity bills, $100. Add on top of that medical aid, educational fees, motor and other insurance, essential social safety nets such as funeral cover, as well as social obligations such as securing a permanent home and saving enough to provide financial security. There is a negative relationship between per capita income levels and corruption in Zimbabwe. Higher levels of corruption induce much lower per capita income levels and FDI flows. In addition, there is a negative association between private domestic investment, PDI, and corruption in Zimbabwe. This implies that corruption seems to be detrimental to private domestic investment in Zimbabwe. A negative relationship between savings and corruption exists in Zimbabwe, meaning the higher the level of corruption, the lower the domestic savings. Quite clearly, lower levels of institutional quality are associated with higher levels of corruption. Corruption in Zimbabwe has resulted in a marked increase in levels of fiscal deficit and domestic indebtedness as central government has bailed out and taken over the debts of a number of parastatals, including the central bank, through the Debt Assumption Act, which saw the government assuming the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe's $1.4 billion debt. Consequently, according to the IMF's 2016 report, the total public domestic debt increased from $1.124 billion in 2013 to $1.960 billion in 2015. Corruption has also contributed to a significant increase in the levels of informalization and underground economic activities in the country. Moreover, corruption has discouraged production and provided strong incentives for rent-seeking and conspicuous consumption. This has had the effect of undermining economic growth, as well as the ability of government to mobilize resources domestically. Endemic and systemic corruption in Zimbabwe is associated with economic slowdown, associated with weak per capita incomes, low FDI inflows, dwindling public and domestic investments, and negative savings. A joint report by the African Development Bank, AFDB, and the Global Financial Report of May 2013 revealed that between 1980 and 2009, Zimbabwe cumulatively lost $11.8 billion due to illicit resource transfers that involved the transfer of money earned through corruption, tax evasion, criminal activities, and other illegal business activities. Boyce and Ndikumana in 2012 found that capital flight in Zimbabwe reached an annual record high of $3.1 billion in 2006. A report by Global Financial Integrity on illicit financial flows covering the period 2004 to 2013 revealed that Zimbabwe lost a cumulative $2.8 billion over the period 2004 to 2013 through illicit financial flows. Furthermore, according to the Minerals Marketing Corporation of Zimbabwe, in 2014, the country lost more than $50 million worth of gold every month through smuggling. In October 2015, Fidelity Printers and Refiners reported that the country was losing an estimated $180 million worth of gold annually through smuggling into neighboring countries. A report titled Reap What You Sow: Greed and Corruption in Zimbabwe, Marange Diamond Fields, produced in 2012 by the Toronto-based pressure group Partnership Africa Canada, highlighted that diamonds worth $2 billion had been looted since 2008. Poor corporate governance in the financial sector has led to a collapse of a number of banks, most of them having failed during the period 2003 and 4, when 10 of them were placed under curatorship, 2 were placed under liquidation, and 1 discount house was closed, resulting in a loss of jobs. In addition, a total of 6 banks, Afrasia Bank Zimbabwe, Interfin, Trust Bank, Allied Bank, Capital Bank, and Royal Bank, have closed operations since dollarization in 2009, due mainly to poor corporate governance. Depositors are currently struggling to recover funds amounting to more than $115 million after the collapse of Trust Banking Corporation, Genesis Investment Bank, Royal Bank, Interfin, Capital Bank, and Allied Bank. While Genesis, whose license was revoked in 2012, owes more than $1.4 million to depositors. Trust Bank, which shut down in 2013, owes depositors $2.5 million. Interfin, whose banking license was cancelled in 2012, owes depositors more than $60 million. Deposits trapped in Royal Bank total more than $11.4 million. As a result of this, there has been a loss of confidence in the financial sector. The impact of corruption is best seen in the field of social service delivery. As a result of corruption, there has been the emergence of the land barons and the sprouting of illegal housing cooperatives. This has resulted in the development of many informal settlements, leading to a number of demolitions. The impact has been more severe on the poor, and in particular women and children, who continue to be denied their basic constitutional rights, such as the right to shelter, the right to clean and safe water, and the right to maternal health. This study recommends that to tackle the problem of corruption, Zimbabwe needs to rethink and relook at its political and economic governance systems. More so, the study shows that the best way to deal with the ever-growing petty-level corruption is through reducing the cost of compliance. This will in turn disincentivize the culture of paying bribes to speed up things or guarantee service. The reform at the Passport Office provides a learning case study. The study also recommends that, to fight corruption, there is need for cultural change. This change should take place within the political body, institutional levels, business practice, and individual levels. The fight against corruption can also generate positive results if the state allows state institutions to operate independently and if they are well resourced. The study applauds the work by the Office of the Auditor General in exposing the rots and calls upon other anti-corruption value chain actors to take up their roles. The study strongly believes that the only sustained long-term solution to the problem of corruption is likely to come from economic development, which is likely to result in providing good remuneration, conducive working conditions to politicians and public servants and civil servants.